it tells us how God's revealed His plan, because it talks about how redemption requires the shedding of blood. But not just any ordinary blood. It has to be a blood of an animal. In the Old Testament, it's from a lamb that is 1 year old or less. It has to be a male, and the animal has to be without blemish. It was a foreshadowing that that's what's going to happen 1,500 years later. That it requires the shedding of blood of someone that is pure, someone that is perfect, Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God, that takes away the sin of the world. And so you can see that the Passover is actually a foreshadowing of what's going to happen 1,500 years later. And lastly, it reveals God's character through types and shadows, these festivals. So in the case of Passover, first of all, it shows God's mercy. How He passes over. Instead of killing the firstborn, which He did with the Egyptians, He passed over. He had mercy upon His people, Israel, when they had the blood posted. But on top of that, it's not only just to show His mercy, but it also shows that He is a just God. Because in other words, He is not going to kind of like have a special favoritism. Well, because you're my children, I'm going to not require you to pay the price. It's as if He's breaking the rules. I say, well, because you're special, so it's okay, you don't have to pay for the price. No. God played by His own rules, the rules that He put it in place. And so that's why He requires the shedding of blood of His only Son, begotten Son, Jesus Christ Himself. So He's a just God. He didn't just say, okay, it's okay, guys, it's okay, because I made the rule, it's all right, you don't have to pay for it. No. He even made Himself to play by the rules that He put in motion. And so He was merciful, but He's also a just God. Okay? So now let's talk about the Feast of the Unleavened Bread in regards to those three things. So first of all, what does unleavened bread commemorate? What kind of special event does it commemorate for us? So we learned already about Passover, but what about unleavened bread? Well, let's read Exodus 13, verse 7 says, "Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and no leavened bread shall be seen among you, nor shall leaven be seen among you in all your quarters." In other words, in all your homes, okay? Now, the question is, why is that? Okay? What does this unleavened bread represent? What special event is it? Well, the next two verses will explain what it is. There are going to be two things, but we're just going to focus on the first one, okay? This is what it says. "You shall tell your son on that day, saying, it is because of that the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt." The second reason is the one in the middle there in white. And then therefore, the bottom part, it says, "Therefore you shall keep this ordinance at its appointed time from year to year." In other words, the unleavened bread commemorates the actual Exodus. The actual time when Israel was delivered out of Egypt. Passover and unleavened bread is very much connected. Actually, Passover and unleavened bread is two different festivals. But if you talk to modern Jews today, most of the time they kind of combine it together. It's like, oh, it's a week long. Actually, it isn't. Passover is on the 14th, and then unleavened bread is on the 15th for 7 days. But because they describe the same event, they kind of clump it together. But they are technically two separate things, okay? So here it says that the unleavened bread actually commemorates the actual moment when Israel was delivered. So it speaks to us because Egypt represents, of course, the world, how we came out of the world, how we've been saved, how we were a pagan, we are unbelievers, or we were worshiping the wrong God. But when we know the Lord, we give our hearts to God, and we're being delivered out of Egypt. So that's what it represents, okay? And then it happens so fast. That's why when you read Exodus 12, the actual instruction, this is how it goes. It says, this is how you are to eat, this is talking about Passover and unleavened bread, with your cloak tucked into your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hands. Eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. In other words, they were instructed to eat not with their pajamas on. They were instructed to eat with their hiking clothing on, getting ready to exit, because tonight, when God judged among the the Egyptians, when the firstborn are killed, they're going to be set free. Because finally they said, get out of here, we had enough of you. Just go. So you see, it's something very interesting that we can learn here, church. That Israel were in bondage for 400 years plus. But suddenly in one night, God set them free. God redeemed them. And sometimes that's how God works. You know, we could be praying for something and it feels like God is not moving. But actually what God is doing, He's waiting, He's preparing the people, the circumstances in such a way that when it is the right moment, He's going to answer His prayer and it's going to happen really quick. And we have to be careful. We have to be ready. I mean, I'll give you several examples. For instance, the wall of Jericho. 40 years that the Israelites were marching in the desert. They said, man, when are we going to get to the promised land? When is it? You know, we keep on hearing about the promised land, the land of milk and honey, but when are we going to get there? So we're marching for 40 years, going around and around, and even finally when they got to the city of Jericho, they had to march for 7 days, but suddenly, at the sound of the trumpet, the wall came crashing down. 40 years of preparation, suddenly in one day, they were able to possess the land. In the New Testament, if you think about the 10 virgins, the same thing happened. They were waiting for the bridegroom. Remember? They were waiting for the bridegroom, but they were waiting so long that they fell asleep. And suddenly the bridegroom came, and it happened so fast that the 5 foolish virgins did not have enough time to get enough oil. And they got left out, as you can see in this picture. You see, this is how God works sometimes. And I think about Noah, the same thing. God told Noah, I'm going to clean up this house, this world. And so He told Noah to build an ark. And Noah waited maybe over 100 years. I think about 120 years. You know, from the time he was instructed to build the ark until the first drop of rain came. But suddenly, you know, after 100+ years of waiting, and maybe people around him, maybe his families, maybe his relatives were mocking him or saying, what are you doing? Why are you building this funny-looking thing? Right? And then but suddenly, if you look at the Bible, it says that 7 days before the rain drops, God told Noah, it's time. Pack up your bags. Bring all the animals in the ark. And 7 days later, the first drops start coming. And it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. And those people who did not listen, they were left out. 100+ years of waiting, and suddenly in one day, the rain just poured. And you saw the northeast. A couple days of rain and it just flooded. Can you imagine 40 days and 40 nights, just the whole earth was filled. It says that windows of heaven just opens up and the water just fell into the earth. Church, it speaks to us. I don't know what you're praying for. Maybe we've been praying for our marriage, or maybe for our church, or our family, or for our children. And it feels like God is not answering. But I want to encourage you that God is preparing us. God is preparing the situation, the circumstances, the church, the people, the family, whatever it is. But we have to be ready. Because when God answers, sometimes He just do it really quick. And if we're not ready, we're going to be left behind. We're going to be left out. So we're praying as corporately right now for this church, for a breakthrough, for really, God to do miracles. And we have to prepare ourselves. Because when God moves, He will move. And if we're not going to be ready, we're going to be left behind. But let's move on then. Number 2, and this is where I'm going to focus my time on actually. So unleavened bread not only commemorates a special event, but it reveals God's plan for salvation. So what are we talking about here? Well, remember that one of the word that I use in Leviticus 23 is the word convocation, which is a Hebrew word mikra, which means rehearsal. So it's given here. So it says here that the feast of the Lord, which you shall proclaim as holy convocation. 3 times it's mentioned here. So we rephrase that word. It will say that you shall proclaim to be a holy rehearsal, dress rehearsal. So the question is, what are we rehearsing for? Okay, what is this unleavened bread is a rehearsal for? Okay, well, let's read the actual instruction. This is how it goes from Exodus. Now this day will be a memorial to you, and you shall celebrate it as a feast to the Lord. Throughout your generation you shall celebrate it as a permanent ordinance. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, but on the first day you shall remove leaven from your houses. For whoever eats anything leavened from the first day until the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. Okay? So notice there where it says there, you shall remove leaven from your homes. And everybody who's caught with leaven in your home, you're going to be cut off. That's a severe punishment. And so remember Pastor Jeff a couple of weeks ago, he says that the preparation is a very important thing for the Jews, for the Hebrews. Okay? And it is for God too. If you